I didn't think I'd ever see my family again. Not after what happened 7 years ago. But then, one night, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. "We need to talk. It's time you came home." I had to reread it. I haven't heard from any of them in so long, not since they kicked me out. Not since they made it clear that I was no longer their daughter. So, why now? And why after so many years? I didn't know what to think. But curiosity got the better of me, and I replied. The messages that followed were chilling, and the more I read, the more I felt like something wasn't right. The next few days were a blur. I was pacing my apartment, barely sleeping. I kept looking over my shoulder, feeling like someone was watching me, but whenever I turned around, nothing was there. Then, last night, things took a terrifying turn. I decided to visit my childhood home. I couldn't resist the pull. I had to know what they wanted. When I arrived, the place looked exactly the same, the old brick house, the faded white picket fence, the overgrown garden that my mother used to tend to. But something felt off. The house was dark. No lights on. No sounds. It didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a mausoleum. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I knocked. Nothing. Then, I noticed something strange. The door was slightly ajar. It wasn't locked. Against my better judgment, I pushed it open. Inside, everything was in place. The furniture, the pictures on the walls, even the smell, it was all as if no time had passed. I called out for my parents. No response. But then, as I stepped further into the house, I heard something. A soft voice, barely a whisper, coming from upstairs. "Come up, we're waiting." I froze. The voice wasn't one I recognized. It wasn't my parents. It sounded older. Almost wrong. But against every instinct, I walked up the stairs, my footsteps echoing in the stillness. When I reached the top, the door to my old room was wide open. And standing in the doorway were my parents. But they weren't right. Their eyes, hollow, dark, like they hadn't seen the light of day in years. Their skin was pale, waxy, stretched too tightly over their faces. I could feel a coldness radiating from them that made my breath catch in my chest. "Why are you here?" I whispered, my voice trembling. They didn't answer. Instead, they stepped aside, revealing what was behind them. A mirror. But not just any mirror. It was wrong. The reflection wasn't of me, but of someone else. Someone who looked exactly like me, but with a twisted, sickly smile plastered across their face. "We've been waiting for you," my mother finally spoke, her voice hollow and cold. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't my family. Not anymore. They'd never been the people I remembered. They were something else. Something that had been waiting for me to return, to fall into their trap. And now that I realized with growing horror, there was no leaving. The door slammed behind me.